The Dental Download podcast is your source for insight into dental school, conversations with dentists, specialists, and leaders in the industry. With new episodes every Monday morning, I'm your host, Haley Schultz. Let's get into this week's episode. Want to make a podcast? Spotify's got a platform that lets you make one super easily and then distribute it everywhere and even earn money, all in one place for free. It's called Spotify for Podcasters. Here's how it works. Spotify for Podcasters lets you record and edit podcasts right away from your phone or computer, so no matter what your setup is like, you can start creating today. Then you can distribute your podcast to Spotify, but also everywhere else podcasts are heard. Video podcasts are also available, and you can earn money in a variety of ways, including ads and podcast subscriptions. Did I mention it is totally free, no catch? I've been using Spotify for Podcasters since the very beginning of my show, and now we're nearing our 200th episode, so I can definitely say it's an easy platform, and I've really loved using it. So be sure to download the Spotify for Podcasters app or go to www.spotify.com/podcasters to get started. All right. Hi, everyone. Today we have a really exciting guest. We have Steve Thorne here today. Could you just introduce yourself and give us kind of an intro to your story of how you got into the dental industry?
Everybody's always interested in how a non-dentist got into the dental industry. Yeah, so it was 1989 when I was graduating from UCLA. It wasn't a good job market. I actually wanted to go into the finance world, but I had done a lot of computer work in the past. My father's a dentist. He wanted to computerize his dental office. Old IBM XTs, XPs, really hard to get to network, and team members in his office didn't know how to use a computer. So it was a big job. Get in there and get the computer installed, teach his team members how to use it, and then how to print out claims. We used to have paper claims back then and do all that work. But what it did is it enabled me to learn the business from the bottom up. I had to learn everything all the way from all the different codings to, teaching them how to properly put in the notes from back then. We had paper charts and all that. So it was a great learning experience.
And that was kind of like the beginning of some technology getting into dentistry back then. And that's a lot of what I kind of wanted to talk about today, like where the dental industry is moving and how many more opportunities there are for dentists as health professionals now. So that was kind of my first thing I wanted to jump into is where do you see the dentistry moving with integration of medical and dental?
Right. Yeah, it's a great question. So I've been at this quite a while, right? So I'm one of the vets in the business, and the way I answer this question is I like to frame it up a little bit, kind of break up dentistry into three different eras since I've been in it. The first era was kind of 1980 to 2000. I call that the aesthetic era. These overlap a little bit, but that's when white teeth came into the world, right? Before it was amalgam and metal crowns and all sorts of other stuff, but white and cosmetics and veneers became very popular. The next era was the digitization era, and that kind of started around maybe 2000, late 90s with digital x-rays were probably the first ones, and then it moved on to digital patient records and everything digital over the last 2 decades, and it's still evolving there too on the digitization. But I think now we're joining what I call the convergence era. And it's this convening of all different aspects of healthcare, for one, like you said, dental medical integration. So dentistry being pulled back into the healthcare system, primarily through primary care health, but lots of areas also. And this isn't just a phenomenon in the United States. This is worldwide. It's happening worldwide. And the convening of technology that is much more based on the science. So the science is driving the technological improvements. We're seeing the convergence of using many more predictive and preventive type testing for dentists. out there, and that's happening. We're seeing the convening of carriers, insurance carriers, now starting to try to figure out how to evolve. They've basically been the same for 40 years, maybe even longer. They haven't really changed. I mean, it's them. I remember some of the same plans that we had back in 1989 when I was working for my father are still in existence today. And maybe the fees are a little bit better, but not a whole lot better. And so that's all starting to evolve. So we're seeing this, we're at a really pivotal moment in oral health in America where I think it truly is coming on to be the absolute best time in my career to be a dentist. I mean, if I could go back and start again, I would love it. It's a great time, and dental medical integration is leading a lot of it. People, I think it's come from the Surgeon General reports primarily is what drove a lot of this. The big Surgeon General report in 2000 that said basically, I'll paraphrase, we can't have good overall health in America without good oral health. Came on again in 2010 or 11, the next Surgeon General went much more in depth about the importance of oral health and what dentists do to help maintain the ability to eat and bone loss and cancers and just on went further. And then 2021, the oral health, I think Oral Health in America report was like 272 pages, no, 722 pages long or something. So you're seeing this this pull by the traditional and evolving medical system to pull dentistry and dentists back into that system.
And you've kind of touched on it with some examples there, but for people that are still trying to understand, like, what would this integration look like, or what examples do you have?
Well, we have a couple going on right now as an example where nurse practitioners are embedded in the dental offices. So a lot of states, nurse practitioners can have their own practice, so they can work right with the dentist. And it's great. You get a patient in with high blood pressure, you can make the referral right away. You can bring the nurse practitioner in the operatory, whatever. A lot of our offices do A1C testing. So you can, patient has elevated A1C, they may have never known, which is typically the case. They don't know about these things. And you can go over and have a discussion with the PCP. We have integrated practices with physicians, dentists, or not dentists, patients oftentimes aren't that great at remembering all the meds they're on, right? So with our system, we use Epic as our electronic health record. It's able to collect all that data for the meds, and then you can have a discussion with the PCP or the MD or whatever right there to help patients be healthier. So I think it's all about being more patient centric. I was just on the phone with and I know your dean is all over this. She's great. I think she's now the provost of the university now, right? She's awesome. Yeah, we've been on a couple panels together. But I was just on the phone today with Dean with Nader at UOP. We were talking about that, about the movement is centered around the patient, and so much of the past has been centered around the clinician. And so as that evolves more and more, and it's more patient centric with quantifiable self and wearables and the power that's in this phone that we're on right now that can harness all that data and feed into the electronic health record to help your care providers do a better job to care for you, give advice, input. It's going to be super powerful.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of opportunity there. And PDS focused on like the mouth body connection really early on, right?
Right.
Yeah. And we've talked a little bit about that. All of this is pretty patient centric. Do you see any other ways that this integration is benefiting patients? You mentioned kind of maybe finding out a diagnosis that they didn't know they had. Is there anything else?
Right. Yeah, I think it's all about predictive and being more predictive and preventive. So I think oral salivary diagnostics are going to play a huge role in how you practice in the future. So right now, I'll give you three examples. So salivary diagnostics, you can, with a simple spit test now, you can, right now you have to send it to a lab, but you send it to a lab and you can find out their susceptibility to inflammatory diseases by measuring their IL-1, IL-6, interleukin-1, interleukin-6, and get a good read on that and other genomics. You can, with that spit test and soon to be chairside, you'll be able to measure patients' levels of different bacteria. PG probably be some of the first, PG, FN, AA. And so you'll be able to measure some of these harmful bacteria that cause other problems in the body. One of my favorite ones is AMMP8 because it's a measurement of the collagen breakdown in your mouth, which is a direct measurement of how aggressive the periodontal disease, or not aggressive, is in your mouth at that particular moment, right then. So you can measure that and have a discussion with your patient about the aggressiveness of what's going on in their mouths right then. So powerful.
Yeah, it definitely is. And it's exciting that you said eventually it might be moving chairside to make it even more rapid to get everybody their results. And you were mentioning that you think this is like a great time to be getting into dentistry. So what are some of the things that make the dental market kind of unique?
Yeah, so I think that's a really good question. So why unique against going to be an MD or a vet or something else that dentists would probably be choosing against, right? So, you know, one big area is it is so consumer focused. So whether you take insurance or not, the most of your dollars that you generate as a practitioner are going to come from patients, not the carrier. Like in our system, we're a big insurance player, right? One of the largest in the country, not the world. 83% of our patients come in with a dental plan, but they only pay 37% of the cost. So that means 63% has to come from patients' pockets. And we're probably on the high side. If you take less plans, you're going to have more patient out of pocket. So you have to be patient-centric, consumer focused as a dentist. And it's very kind of retail-esque, right? And so what I realize now that we're running medical practices too, operating medical practices, is that dentists are very uniquely wound to be entrepreneurial for the most part, not all of them, but for the most part, right? And so that makes it fun. They want to learn the business side, not totally, not like I do as much. I'm a business guy, but that's fun, and they also like the leadership end too. So it's the whole leadership and management of the people in the practice. And we get to, in our organization, we get to teach them and help them, and they have fun with it. So many of them, that becomes their favorite part of practicing dentistry, is helping team members elevate, right? So they have a lot of fun with that. And I think oral health, lastly, oral health awareness, this is my opinion at this point. I don't have data to support it, other than our internal data on what we call opportunities per clinician. So our number of patients that want to see our clinicians is way up. So I've seen this trend happening over the last decade of oral health awareness increasing, and that's great. I mean, it's like, that is great for business. And also, I'll add one more too. I said I was going to only do one more. You look at the aging population around the world. United States, in the United States, by 2040, we're going to see a 49% increase. I think 49% increase in people over 65 years old. That is great for business. So they're the big consumers of oral health services. So it's a really strong business. It's steady. It's stable, and it's just a great time. Great time to be a dentist.
And we talked about all these great things, but I'm also curious, what do you see as some of the obstacles currently in the way of dental or upcoming in the future?
Yeah, that's another really good question. So there are headwinds. There's economic headwinds. Cost of capital is up. Cost of labor is up. The overall cost of operating a practice are up. And if you're not in some sort of group or leveraging your cost side of the equation, well, your margins are going to be hurt. Your income would be hurt right now. Do I see it changing? No, actually, I don't see that changing much. I think the cost of hygienists will probably keep going up. Cost of dental assistants up. Supply costs have been good. Lab costs have been pretty good, but rent's going to keep going up. Utilities are going to keep going up. All those costs keep going up, and dentists don't have a whole lot of control over their fees. So that's a challenge, and there's only really a couple ways for dentists to kind of attack that negative aspect of the business. Is number one, to do more of the dentistry that they diagnose on a daily basis. So you can look at data from different sources of how much dentistry the average dentist diagnoses versus how much they do, and it's relatively low in the United States. I think Delta Dental or Caremark or somebody has some of the data there. I've seen data ranging from 25% to 33%. So it's relatively low on the amount total diagnosed versus the total done. That has to change. They've got to get better. And I think that comes through, I think it comes from education that leads to better awareness of what happens if they don't solve the problems, to activation into their own care. And as dentists get better at those three things, they will get more patients activating in care, which will offset some of that cost increase.
Those are a lot of good perspectives.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it did. Definitely did.
Good.
So a lot of my listeners are soon-to-be dentists, a lot of dental students. Mm-hmm. So what advice do you have for someone that's graduating soon and starting into the path as an associate?
First off, as a D, even a D3, but D4 students for sure, get out there, and there's tons of groups you can go in, and most schools have internship programs or some set of programs you can get into the real dental offices, the type you want to go into. So all dentists have a choice, right? They don't have to go into for-profit private practice dentistry. They can go into not-for-profit. They can go AEGD. They can go GPR. They can do Indian Health. There's so many places that they can go, so they can decide. I'm primarily talking about for-profit private practice insurance-based dentistry here. Get in there as a D4 student. Go learn. You can get into multiple practices, so you kind of learn what you like and don't like, because they're all different. And so I would learn as much as you can, and then make sure when you get into a practice, it's a practice where they are going to help you be really successful. Those are by far the best practices I see in our network. The main doc is really dedicated to helping the newer docs succeed. So it might be speed, it might be diagnosis, it might be advancing some other clinical skill, it might be advancing how they work with ancillaries, whatever it may be, and help. Because I've seen docs ramp really fast when they come into the offices. So, I mean, some ramp in literally in a couple months. Some it takes a little bit longer. But the sooner we can help you be confident and be successful as a dentist, the more you're going to fall in love with the profession.
So do you recommend that fourth years are reaching out to just any offices they're interested in, even if they're not hiring? Just say, I want to come observe. I want to come see how you do things.
Oh, totally. If your school doesn't have a program that's set up with a group of practices out there, just reach out. We'd take you in a heartbeat. Come on in, check it out. we call it dentist and training program. We have a whole program around it, DIT. So yeah, just get out there and learn it. And I'm not pitching PDS, but check out all the other, check out other groups, check out individuals that aren't affiliated, check out a big group, a small office, and see what makes sense. Yeah.
And one more question for my pre-dental listeners that are even deciding where to go to dental school. Do you have any advice for deciding I want to go to a program that's going to set me up well for the future? What are some things you think people should be looking for?
That's a really good question. And I think I'm a good person to answer that question because we're one of the biggest customers of dental schools in the United States. Probably us and maybe Aspen Dental, because we have programs for new grads. So I just saw research come out that most kids are figuring out if they want to go to dental school in high school or their first 2 years of college. And then they've already figured out, then they got to start figuring out which one. And so the quality, what we have experienced, the quality of the dentists coming out of schools is pretty good across the board. I think there's maybe 75, 77 dental schools right now or something like that, and growing. There's more schools. So when you graduate, most are fairly skilled and pretty spot on diagnosis and that sort of thing. Then you've got to look at the schools, what the school focuses on. So I'm on the board of a bunch of different schools. So some are really into community health. AT still is like that. Some are really into helping dentists be maybe more productive right from the start. I call them more super dentists. They don't have a specialties program, so they get more reps in some of the other areas because they don't have a specialties program. Creighton's like that. Maybe it's like the Harvard I'm on board there, and maybe you're into the science. They're much more into the scientific approach, and I was just at Penn the other day, and it's amazing. Or your school, where I know you're a former dean, and how passionate she was about a bunch of this dental medical integration area and what we call mouth body connection. So we really want to dig in. What is that school's emphasis, and how do they differ in the marketplace, and choose the one that kind of fits with where you see yourself going. And then some schools get you a lot of reps. I call them reps. You get to do a lot of crowns or a lot of dentistry. I would definitely try to pick a school that allows you to do a lot of dentistry while you're in school. It'll really help you once you get out.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot more information about that now out there than even when I was applying. I didn't really know how much of everything you do at each school or what their focuses were. So hopefully people could make some good informed choices with that.
Yep.
And we covered a lot today. Kind of wrapping up here, is there any final advice or words of wisdom you want to get out to the listeners?
Yeah, remember when you get your dental license, now you got a license to get out there and learn. You're not done, you're just starting. And get out there, be humble, learn from all aspects, and do it while you're young. Get in there, work hard while you're young. I'm an old guy now, and so you get tired when you're older, and go talk to some 60-year-old dentists too, and they'll tell you the same thing. So learn while you're young, learn all aspects. I mean, man, it's just such an exciting time. Probably the biggest growth area is implants. So if you're into implants and you like that as a GP, I would emphasize that area.
Thank you so much. And thank you for your time today. It's been great.